We have five of our board members are here tonight. Two of them could not make it tonight. So we do have a quorum to start the meeting and make it an official meeting. First and foremost, I'd like to say that last we met, I gave you a briefing on where we were with the request for proposal to hire a management company. And evidently some of the words that I spoke during that meeting did not sit well with a few people in the audience. So I apologize in advance. There was no intent to direct any derogatory statements against any individual, any board, present, past, or future. So with that, what I'd like to do is just confirm. Again, we have a quorum, and would like to have the secretary read the minutes of the meeting.
No, I didn't see anything.
I can stick to,
Ridiculous.
Last meeting, the new board members were introduced, explained why Larry Kahn explained why owners thought he talked too much. But it was because he was the only board member attending the last two meetings. We now have
shut the hands off because we can't hear you.
Yeah.
turn off the flash.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna talk, we might as well hear you. I don't know what is we saying now. I mean, why sit here if we can't hear?
We now have 7 board members, so that problem is resolved. A misconception he heard from homeowners was that he was opposed to the MSA and wanted to run everything himself. He said this was not true. Another misconception was that if we solved the MSA and insurance problems, everything would be all right. He said that was not so. Then he spoke about the D&O insurance policy, asked us to forget anger and try to work in a positive direction. If we don't, the community could end up in receivership, which would be the worst situation. Handouts were given explaining everything. The treasurer's report as of February 28, 2017, we had $98,360 and current assets $108.70. What was also on a printout. A handout of the proposed insurance policies showing the business insurance summary.
That's good. It was going into the wall.
To vote on this. As a result of many homeowners' concerns, the new pest control company will be contracted to do indoor pests. Louis Diller researched 6 different property management companies, handed out the DMCR for proposal, is going to thoroughly examine their work and talk to people who live on those properties. Lisa Waters has offered to accompany him in this process. He did not accept her offer. Spoke about work order process, election criteria, and compliance with MSA. The decision will be made after we analyze each company's responses and our visits to their properties. This should happen by May 1st. The new management property agreement would begin June 30th. Transition period with CAM would go from June 1st to June 30th. He explained that the work orders are not currently working will be sure to find out how they will be processed and accessible to us from the new company. MSA overcharges have been rectified. And then Chester wants all records transferred from CAM on a building-by-building basis.
Thank you, Amy. The next item on the agenda was the president's report. Well, our president's not here today, so there's no report that was prepared for this particular meeting. However, there are a lot of things every time we meet. There seem to be new items and topics that crop up over time that need to be addressed. And I'll talk a little bit about those projects later on in the agenda. Things like an insurance policy that Bill was gracious enough to give us some comments on that need to be reviewed and verified with the insurance company that's holding our premium to make sure that it's in the best interest of the Big Tree community. So that's one of the items that came up, and there's a couple of items that I'll get into as we go along in a little bit more detail, some of which are going to require some digging around and picking up some background information to be able to move forward. So at this point, what I'd like to do is hand it over to the treasurer's report. Yeah.
I know.
But
I'll probably get one of those during your reading of this.
I'll be kind. But if you'd be so kind as to go through the report.
Okay. Basically, we've got $91,653 cash. Okay. That's our reserve for cash. Also, other assets are that we have when we have the allowances, the assessments that come in. The assessments are actually intentions to collect money, and we have outstanding, in other assets, we have outstanding receivables of $43,000 and $43,631. Bad debt allowance are our write-offs where we write off the debt that we owe. Some miscellaneous accounts receivable, prepaid items that we pay like quarterly or annually. So all of that adds up to a total asset of $96,000, but really we've got $91,653 in cash. Okay. If you go to the page where we go into the income statement, and the operating, there's where the assessments are defined. We collect $35,840 a month in monthly assessments. That's the $224 you pay. There's some interest and late fees that we add to that we collect, and interest income, and various things like that, and reserve interest. But in all of that, it comes up to a operating income of $36,366. That is not a realized income because we have not collected some of that money yet. But I'd say we're short about $8 grand as far as collecting the whole money. So if you look at the 36, you could top us probably $8 grand off of that and get what we really have as far as cash coming in. All of the operating expenses are the kind of expenses where we incurred the expense. So that means that we got the work done, we were invoiced, and we approved the invoice. So those are all real things that have to be paid. And so I like to look at this particular thing in terms of having the realized income, meaning we actually collected the money, against the incurred expense. And I'd like to see that someday trended year to year, from month to month, so that we have a kind of total that we're keeping up with our commitments to spend money. And, you know, something like you do in the home budget. But are there any questions that you might have about, yeah,
I would like, if it's possible, to get a statement of cash flow,
what?
a statement of cash flow with the financial statements.
Right.
Could we, I requested that, could we have it?
A statement of escrow meaning what?
Cash flow.
Cash flow.
Changes in cash.
Statement of cash flow, okay.
Yes.
All right, you want to, in the future, a statement of cash flow?
Yeah, I would like to see included with the income statement and the balance sheet, a statement of cash flow.
Statement of cash flow,
Correct. And if they have a question, they can call me.
okay. That is, realized income minus incurred expense, right?
But there's the changes in cash flow.
Yeah, yeah. In other words, trend the cash flow to see that, you
So
know.
they don't know what, it's an accounting,
It's an accounting
Okay.
practice.
It's a report.
It's very common.
Okay, is it?
yes.
Okay, well, okay, we find out what that looks like, we'll get into it.
And if they have questions, could they call me?
Sure,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, that's, yeah.
You had a question over here.
Okay, so building maintenance, our actual for January, February, March was $34,563.20. Is that accurate?
I would say so. I know that the amount of money you see in question, that I know you have on your mind, wasn't all paid out or wasn't all incurred in this month, but it was a little.
Well, why would we pay for it in this month if, when was it incurred? I don't understand, because February would be end of February, March would be end of March.
Let me get to the point I think you're really trying to make.
No, and then I want to bring
Well,
up, the budget was $10,000, the variance, we went over $24,563.20. And then if you go down to roof maintenance, the actual was nothing, and we were budgeted $4,166.67. Does that mean we didn't do any roofs in the month of March?
Oh, no, we did roofs.
Well, then why isn't there any actual statement of money spent on roofs?
I have a question too. Someone had said, now this is just community talk, that, and you don't need to interrupt you.
Well, I just want to get clear on this because none of this makes any sense. And I would like to know, of that $34,563.20, how much was spent on Larry's building and invoices and sheet number and roof?
Here we go.
I would like,
Well, I'll just give you the figure.
okay, oh, you already know that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Do you want it, and that will, we have to defer this until we get a lot of other things done.
Defer what?
Defer discussion about this particular event.
These are hard numbers, that's all
I
I'm looking for,
understand,
is
but
answers to the hard
I'm just
numbers.
saying, because we have other things to consider, other agenda items, I will give you the figure of what was spent on building 40,
Okay,
and and
Is that
then,
included in this report or no?
no, it was,
This is
So,
at,
we really don't have
the
$96,000.
date of this report.
was
That's
3/31, end of March.
Now, I don't know, and I can't assure you,
That-
that the invoices came in prior to the date to be registered under this number.
okay, can we just, look, $44,357 is spent on the roof.
What's that?
$44,357 is spent on the roof.
When?
$44,000 was spent on what?
Building,
Building 40?
In February or March?
March and April.
How about in February? What was spent in February? Because the building permit was pulled in February.
Yeah, the building permit was pulled on the 2nd of February, the
I
day
think the building
after.
permit can be pulled, and then the work can be done in the following month.
Can we wait till we hit item 5 to do all this? Let's finish the,
Because we've got a lot of needs to get things accomplished today. Particularly, we've got to come to closure on the insurance.
Just for an
the
hour, I'll talk to
RFP,
you
and all these
offline
things.
after the meeting
Yeah,
and give you the answers
Don't
that
you
you're
think it'd
looking
be funny?
for to the best of our ability.
This is important.
You can tell them when you find out.
I know that you all are uptight and all that, but I literally have have gone to the state attorney's office, and what was done to us was illegal. It was wrong. What he did is considered embezzlement. It is wrong, and the fact that you're mad at her, whether or not she delivers it right or wrong, she's right. You all, this is wrong. You don't even have this money in your account. Tracy has been having water come in her closet, black mold, she has been talking to.
Please.
No, let her,
And then,
let her finish.
and then on top of that, you're talking about medical costs that are gonna be added to everything else. Because we were told there is no more money to do the work. It's zero.
The CAM told you that? Because the emails that I've seen,
Is that in writing?
when I was inquiring,
Yes, it is.
Tracy, as a result of your inquiry last month, I called and sent emails to both the board members at the time and to the CAM. And they had approved invoicing proposals from the Centerbeam Corporation to come out and fix your problem.
Dan told me they did.
I'll show it to you offline if you'd like to see it. I have a copy of it and I brought it
She just called,
explicitly for
twice a
you to
day.
see
Yeah.
whether or not, I was out there taking pictures yesterday and I sent them out
So
again
did I, correct?
because
Yeah.
nothing had happened since our last board meeting. So I would like to talk to you about that offline, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So if you can continue on.
I'm done with this.
I'm done with it.
Just a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where are you on the budget for 2017, Chester? Where, I mean, you guys, I know you tried to do that a couple of months ago and you didn't have a quorum at that time, but where are you now in trying to resolve 26? Because I think we're still comparing to 2015 budget
Or we're just propagating it?
it's just continued forward from whatever we did in the budget for 2015. I just think
Well,
that you
in
need to
fairness,
Yeah.
Chester has just graciously agreed
Right.
to be our treasurer.
Bill, you contributed
Okay.
Who
to
was our treasurer before
the
him?
deliberation on
Who
that.
was our
I
treasurer
suggest-
before him, Bill?
Who is the treasurer?
Who was our treasurer before
This
Chet?
gentleman right
I
here.
was until January 24th,
And we had.
and I
at the time.
proposed a budget. So
And
there is a draft of a budget.
And you feel comfortable at that point?
Yeah, I do, I think that was a consensus.
I'd like to
at the time.
revisit that,
Yeah,
you know, and answer that question because.
Let's go to the agenda of the meeting, please.
Yeah, we will, but let me just finish one thing. I'd like to revisit that because we cannot go from year to year to year using last year's.
Yeah,
It should be just a sensitivity analysis
We have to
because we've got new projects that come up in that current year that are gonna just blow that budget right out of the water
So what do you do
automatically.
about things that were not placed in the budget that were put at the top of the list?
I haven't seen such a list.
It's on,
A project list?
Let's get to doing some of the essential things we absolutely have to do today. Let's go to the D&O insurance.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna run on this board unless we have a coverage of the discount, okay?
What are we talking about?
We've got a lot of time left
Do
in
we
our
have
meeting.
D&O insurance?
D&O insurance.
Why are
Wait.
we talking about it?
We have a lot of time left in our meeting to continue this conversation. Let's finish the agenda, talk a little bit about the RFP, and a little bit about some of the new items that have cropped up after we get the Q&A session out of the way. That'll give you plenty of time to discuss what's concerning it, all right? So, thank you for the treasurer's report. Appreciate that. All right, relative to the RFP,
I'll just be better late than to go, you know, and I want you guys to suggest things, okay? Put those things in writing so that I can address them. Okay, I'll go to the meeting minutes and I'll
Send you an email.
I'll
I
be,
sent you an email. Yeah, but then nobody else knows about it.
This is
It'll-
the place
it'll be
to talk about
Out in the
it.
open, with everybody.
about
the
what?
concern has to be understood. If it's not in writing and it's verbalized,
Well, yeah, but I'm
talk
not
to him and walk away with something.
Okay.
All right, so if I can continue, last time we met, we talked a little about the vetting process for the 6 different companies And it was in several stages, and there are 4 of them that actually replied, 2 of which had the best angle on the request for proposal, which was Signature and Newman Corporation. As a result of the question and answer sessions last time around, I was asked to do a little bit more vetting of these companies, which I did. I went back and I solicited 3 different references from each of the companies, all of which had to do with a variety of communities that they service. Some are condo-type communities, others had a match in that they were townhomes, but they didn't match because there were some aspects of their contract that weren't included to the depth that our requirements were. So Big Tree, in essence, was very unique in the requirements that they had for these companies to bid on. For example, that Signature might have done some of the exterior work on the grounds, but they only did common area. They didn't do anything relative to the surrounding townhomes and things of that nature. Ours is a lot more inclusive and a lot more in depth. So we went through and I called 2 of the references that I was able to get a hold of for Leland Enterprises. And both references had a match in that they were townhomes, but they did not, one of them did not have as complete a package as we had. One of them did. That was the one on St. John's Center, the new townhomes that are up in there. It turned out that the president of that HOA was in a business organization here in Jacksonville that I was part of, the Business Network International, BNI, which is a group of job creators, I like to call them, but it's just a group of businesses and business owners that continually give references to one another as part of a global businessman and businesswoman network. And I was happy to talk to him and hear his reference relative to Leland. I also talked to the president of one of the associations from Signature, and that individual was very happy with Signature's performance as well. But again, they also mentioned that their scope of work was nowhere near what we're requiring. So with that, I thought the balance of the weighting process between Signature and the Leland Corporation was enough information from a feedback standpoint to be able to promote casting and putting a motion on the floor for the board of directors to vote on which of the 2 companies they would want to select. Excuse me. And the reason I said that also is that I asked them all to go through the matrix that I sent out, and then they could grade each of the companies individually, and I don't know what the results are going to be of this vote until they actually cast the vote. So with that, I'd like to motion that we vote for one of these 2 companies.
I have a question, I'm sorry, I have a question, but at the previous meeting, you talked about another company, Magnolia, so how did you come to the decision of those 2 companies?
Magnolia, when we did I'll call on you next, you don't have to hold it on, you'll get tired.
Well,
Why don't you wait? The Magnolia Company, as I mentioned during last month's meeting, is a realty company that has absolutely zero experience in managing property management. This was going to be their first venture into property management. And vetting a company such as that would not be in the best interest of Big Tree, so they were not considered.
Okay.
Your question, please.
We had a meeting underneath the pavilion when, in January, where I asked Larry, or suggested that we have a couple of management companies be interviewed before the community. And you, Larry, and Bill Jasper, you especially kind of condescended, well, that's exactly what we're doing. And as I hear it now, we're having a vote on the floor tonight on which management companies, without presenting them to the community as you stated would be done in the past.
As I mentioned during the last meeting, I sat down with a face-to-face interview with the managers and the president of each of the companies.
Why would you have stated at that point in time? Was it just to offset restless natives? Because you came forth and presented before the community that we would have the opportunity to question the possible management companies prior to a selection by the board, and now it's being negated as if it was never even brought up.
Can you imagine getting through that with that group? Questioning everybody, it would never happen. So you're doing the right thing.
Stop,
We
please.
don't want to start.
I want an answer
No, I
to,
have to say something.
Yeah.
She is on the board.
So,
You want us to treat you with respect, she has to treat us.
you don't treat him with respect at all.
Who said shut up, Katie?
This is why we elected a board, so that you guys can make those decisions for us.
why would you
We
not?
cannot ever agree.
You'll never get
There's,
it.
you'll never get it done.
That's right.
We have a board.
Correct.
so that
That's what you
can
have a
make
board
decisions.
for.
Why would you have presented it to?
So he just said it, that's all.
But you needed
It's
an
simple
input.
things.
You don't have to yell at people.
She doesn't understand.
Nasty
If I may.
God.
Can you please have an answer to the question?
You asked the question.
I would like an answer.
Okay, now, going through the vetting process, as extensive as I have, and shared the information with my fellow board members.
But you said you were going to
Oh,
share.
my God.
Say something.
She's changed.
Change his mind, that's all.
She's changed, it's
And
different.
the vetting process.
Jesus.
That because we're under such a constraint to get this done before the expiration date of the current contract.
Which is when?
The 30th of June.
So we're in January, February, March, April, so we have 2 months.
I went through that vetting process as detailed as I could make it, made it visible to you folks as I was going along the way. This board is charged with the voting majority to make a decision on what management company they're going to vote for and hire. Okay, and again, I put that motion back on the ground.
I make a motion that we vote on it.
Any second?
Second,
Alright.
yes.
I'm sorry.
So let us go through the voting process.
No,
You know, this
this has got to stop. This is where our problem
You know,
is.
your problem is, you don't have a management company. They
We
can
have
have the board.
You're telling me that?
Yes.
You know
I
what?
understand
I can't
that.
hear you.
It's really obscene that you show up here and just say, here's this information, now we're voting on it, and nobody has a clue or has enough information.
If you don't have
The
enough
homeowners.
information, a lot of that will just.
Okay, what I'm saying, Luis, is I think it would be helpful in the future, when we're trying to make a major decision, the board's gonna vote on a decision to do something that is gonna really affect the community, the budget, everything down the line. It would be helpful if you could present the information in a way to say, we have these 2 companies. They do this and this and this.
He has done that.
I have vetted them and I have selected what I think would be the best company. Then I think it would be helpful to have that, some representative from the
Not in front of
company
this place.
come
No.
to the meeting, well, just to introduce themselves and say, this is what we would like to do for the community. Tell us how much it's gonna cost,
I'd like to.
and then vote on it.
Well, that's what you said we were going to do. Isn't there a motion on the floor? Motion on the floor.
Wait a minute, I can't hear.
This is the motion I want you to understand that this is what happened with camp too. We were supposed to be, you know, meet with the people from camp and then camp was determined, and that's why we're in the situation we're in now. So I mean, I'm not saying that you can't make a good decision, but I think you should understand that a lot of us have been here for a long time. and
I'd
this
like
is
to
what
hear
happened.
another.
I agree with that, but
Cory.
one of the things, Katie, is that it's very disconcerting to have a group undermine what you're trying so hard to do for the benefit of the community. And the vetting process is not a haphazard process.
I understand that, but you know.
What group is
I
undermining
understand
you?
Also, why people are a little reluctant to go.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
He's having a meeting, I'm gonna let him call me. I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
It's okay.
No, my thing was up first. My thing is that, okay, I was under the impression that a board, you all got the information and presented it to us and then we voted on it. That's what I thought it
In
was
this situation is
before.
because.
I thought you chose like a top 3
Yeah.
companies
Have
and
you
then
read the
as,
contracts?
no, but they were
Okay, have you
available.
read?
But there is someone like Stone Properties who are like within our area.
No, before I started this vetting process, I asked for input during an HOA meeting, and I did not get
Well, I
any.
am
So we went
new
out
to the community,
Well,
so
that's
that's
a good
why
tough luck.
I'm here. Yes,
Well, the
I am.
answer to your question is, the question was asked and answered.
So
Or not
what,
answered.
well, what is the answer towards asking whether or not you give us 3 options and then we vote on those 3? Because that's the way you presented it
Because that's the
before.
job.
No, we never did.
That's the board's job. That's why you elected.
But there is no board statutes
Have you
anymore. They're
vetted?
not even, they're
Have you
really
vetted?
just,
Have you vetted these?
Please.
You
you
don't
make them available for us. We have offered to go, but your answer was no. So
Yeah.
how in the world, am I
Hey.
osmosis? Am I supposed to like read your mind?
Well, I can't answer that.
I am an educated individual and I do know how to read pamphlets. So if you gave them to me, I would be more than happy to read them.
That's the board's job. So I'll leave it at that.
We elected
Question
the
over
board.
here.
We live with
No, you
that.
didn't. You're wrong in that. You're wrong in that. No, you didn't. Larry picked the board.
We have a question over here on the
So
right.
I don't have a question.
They didn't count your vote.
I have a concern.
Someone was there.
Please.
And I'm not to talk over unless there's quorum, and we have a 3-minute, each one of us legally have a 3-minute right. This is out of control, it's unproductive, it's not resolving anything, this is a waste of my time. Oh, I live in this community. You can sit down.
Yeah.
I've lived here 19 years.
You wanna come and bite your
18 years.
chest against mine like you did before? Come on, and put your, yeah, come on.
Please, this is a little bit much, all right?
Well, I agree.
Make your comment based
I
on the
would
agenda
like
if you could.
to, I totally empathize with what this lady is saying in the front who have never met. It is a confusion going on right now, but this confusion has been created by so much distension that's running rampant in our community. Nobody wants to run for a board. There's continual, everybody's kicking everybody, nobody got factual information, nobody understands the working of a property management company. I have 30 years of Prudential and Walter Williams Realty working in property management, working in real estate. It is a complex situation. And for the size of our community, to get somebody to take on what we are asking them to do is difficult. So when you have a board that's continually changing hands year after year, no one can get a handle on what is coming, what is going. We've got a new Luis who's jumped up, Larry Kahn who's missing. Now here we go again trying to ask very specific questions, which is understandable. How do you jump in and do it without some sense of quorum, some sense of who's leading what? And I'm here for the benefit, I live here too. I want my investment protected. I've got things that haven't been done in 18 years. I paid over $47,000 in dues. So I'm empathizing to a lot of you need people coming in, but this is an ongoing occurrence, and how do we stop it?
Get a management company.
And the management company is only a middleman. And I've worked in property management respectfully. I've been on the other side. I've also owned 11 rental properties personally on my own and managed them by myself.
If they don't get in compliance of the MSA, they're gonna be looking at
Let me
lawsuits.
clarify on the MSA. Let me ask you
The
something.
management company is
I know
doing
what an
consistent
MSA
thing
is.
year after year, no matter how the board changes.
Lisa, may I ask you a question before, can we be civil adults?
All right, well,
No, I'd like to clarify that. That flyer came flying around on me, well, the MSA agreement, that's a whole different situation. I totally in agreement with you. But it's a very gray area, as our attorney, Farrell, Sorrell, whatever his name was, said. It's a gray area, it's not specific. So we leave the day-to-day operations, they're an accounting service is what we need, but we also need a liaison between work orders, but the end user ultimately is the president of the association. He has to authorize anything going forward. Now, the hard part is, how do you get that going in a simulation in a format that's conducive to please everybody? And number two, getting the funds allocated to do what we need on the spot.
What happens when the president allocates his work prior to everybody else's, jumps his place in front of everybody else's? And because the
well,
president
we're
has,
getting into an
Tina,
area where
we're
the
not
individual's
with
not here, and
respect.
I'd like to put that to bed for a little bit. It's an issue for a lot of people, rightfully so.
it's been the issue in
But I would like
for
to
many, many years.
You had a question.
You have to stand up so we hear you.
Please.
I was asked to stand up. Okay, my name is Susan Bonsosh, I live at 10462, and I need to get a hold of the termite company, and I have no idea how to do that. So if somebody could give me the phone number, then I have been on the repairs list for at least 2 years, and nothing is happening, and the building is falling apart. And the third item is, how are we doing with the procedures, coming up with the procedures that we have to have. We discussed it at a few meetings. And then just some phone numbers so we can get hold of board members or somebody to help us with the question.
Were you able to document that? No,
Louise.
we want to get afterwards.
You'll have to tell me later.
Okay. Would you get with her
Yeah,
after the meeting
sure.
to make sure she's got it?
Thank you.
All right, so, again, I had a motion to vote on the
No,
management
I'm
company,
objecting.
and it was
I'm objecting.
so,
I'm tired of
Let's
people
vote.
railroading
For
votes
Leland
through,
or-
and the homeowners don't know
Yes.
anything.
your vote for Leland is...
They're
Let me add something. If I may-
Leland,
Chester, you vote? for
Yes,
Leland?
I vote in favor.
You're stuffing it down her face again.
Leland.
Now, let me say
Yes, you
this.
are. That's not what you said you were going to do.
God.
Oh,
Your
get
vote.
off of me.
Oh, go fuck yourself.
Leland?
There's our... Because the board has been doing that to us for years and years and years and years. If somebody has the balls to, oh, shut up. Stand up and say it. I'm saying it.
Listen.
No, you listen.
If
Jesus Christ came to this earth, you would object to it.
Larry, come.
That's right. You're right.
I can't come there. Be some polite. Be so darn big with everybody.
Don't sit down. You have no clue what you speak.
Oh, but I do.
You have no.
I've been here 26 years. Don't tell me I don't know.
You don't know.
Don't tell me that I was in here 21 years.
Raise your hand, Bill. I object.
All right, motion passed. Leland.
Yeah. All right.
Hey, Carol's happy. Everybody get up and
As part of the next step, it doesn't stop here with the board voting to contract Leland. The next step between the 30th of this month, they will be notified that they were selected by the board, would be to get a contract issued by Leland where we can sit across the table to make sure that the contract that we're going to sign with them incorporates all of the items that we had in the RFP that we requested that they bid on. So that'll be a negotiation process with a,
And it works with the understanding of what roles and
right,
responsibilities exist between
and that'll be a
and
board.
the facilitator, like that, okay?
So that'll be the next step, is to get a contract from them on how they're gonna do property management, how they're gonna do the grounds management, and any other questions that are relative to us, in particular when it deals with the new items that some of you have been diligent enough to bring to light, and that is the MRTA. The MRTA is a document that requires that, is that relative to the MRTA? Okay, stand up if you would.
Sure, that's for you. That's, in 2013, the study was done, and the MARTA was, were in compliance.
In 2013, the
Yes.
study was done, and it indicated that we were in compliance.
And there's the information. Bill has a copy too. He'll put it on the
It's not
website.
an issue in this.
Well, just to let the rest of the homeowners know what we're talking about, because I'm sure it's Chinese to you, but this is.
Why is it not relevant?
This, excuse me.
Larry, talk, please.
This is an item, MRTA is Marketable Record Title Act. And what happens is that was an act that was put in place many years ago to try and cut down the amount of false claims against deeds and recorded deeds when mortgage companies tried to do transactions in buying and selling homes. So it was an attempt by the state to clean it up. Well, the problem was that when, and they added that to 720, by the way, the 72403 through 72407, which completely details how you have to go about getting your title for your community reinstated. So I had done that research this week based on an input that I got, and there were some homeowners that brought that to light, which is a good deal, because again, that puts something on the table that we need to address to make sure that the deeded properties within Victory are legal deeds. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just, if you go deeper into legal research, which this is a great question to bring up and a concern, but I wish when people would pass out flyers, they would do due diligence and not assume this is something that can happen to us. And because of our recording, and if people understand the legalities of title insurance, covenants and restrictions, how they're recorded.
Right.
When this was done for Spanish land acts way back when, and title, burial grounds, etc. Okay.
And that's great input, because, you know, the bottom line of that is that if you don't have a valid MRTA, then your CCR&R, all these acronyms, what the heck does that mean? You know, your covenants are not enforceable.
But
Basically.
the good news is we are not affected by this. For the primary reason. For the primary reason, and check me up on it, Lisa, feel free. But I'm going to try to explain it rather than anybody get angry. When our first developer first recorded our plat maps, recorded all of our surveys, recorded all of our CC&Rs, our addendum amendments, they were all recorded at one conjunctive time, not separate. That in itself right there negates us. If you read in our covenants and restrictions and our addendum, it says every 10 years we're automatically renewable, correct?
Correct.
So based on that, this is what
references
Chuck is saying. We had an attorney check it out, he knows it. I'm just gonna give you the legal background from my real estate knowledge of how I understand how to read documents. So the good news is, don't worry about it.
Well, the good news,
doesn't affect
but the good news also is that someone brought this to our attention, which is really great, because you put that nugget on the table.
After, Cory, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, there were foreclosures that were done here.
There were foreclosures, yes.
And people bought the foreclosures. And there was an attorney that came in after the foreclosures to try to get the people who had bought them, had their deed, had their title and everything like that, tried to get the people who had bought the place,
The buyers of the condo.
of the new place, to pay the back dues that were owed
The HOA fees, yep,
from the former person.
correct.
How is that possible?
It's very possible, and I'm not gonna get into legal stuff because I'm an attorney, but depending again, whether it's cash, there's every situation in a resale or a foreclosure is different. And I'll be happy to tell you on the side,
But if they had a deed and their title.
the deed has nothing to do with collecting HOA fees.
But if they had a title, and they bought it from the
Let's
people.
get clarity on words. If they had a title,
Okay, and the title cleared,
okay?
all right, why would they be responsible?
The title clearing and ownership to transfer is not the same situation that you're talking about when it's regarding HOAs and backhoe dues. Two totally separate legal issues in foreclosure. And handle, respectfully handle.
According to the
totally completely
MRTA
different ways.
law, whether, and I've read our documents word by word, no matter what the documents say, if the documents aren't preserved before the 30 years, they're no longer valid, and that's why the lawyer cannot collect the back fees that those people in here owe for $20,000 and $10,000.
I went through it, just, I can
And
talk
I
to
can
you
give you
later.
another
I
statute
went
that was
through it
amended in
myself
2015.
Say what, Bill? I can't hear you.
I went through it 2 years ago. There's that 1% safe harbor thing. If the foreclosure is done by the mortgage company, by the
I'm
bank.
not talking about that. I'm talking about the two people who live in the community who haven't paid dues in 20 years. We can't collect those dues because our documents have not been preserved.
That's not true.
That's
It is true.
Please stop.
Then why didn't Sean Morrell collect those dues from those people?
You are giving
And they can't put a lien on the
He's
property.
trying, but the one that's the
He's
biggest
smart. I wish
offender
I
has a
could.
smarter attorney.
At this point, why don't we
Well,
figure
he's
out
not,
what we
yeah,
really
he's smarter
don't, what we
because he's
really
using that, the fact that we haven't
Don't
preserved the
know.
documents.
No, that's not.
It is true.
What is the
Take it,
truth then?
Then why?
read this legal opinion. Read this legal
Why
opinion.
are we
and
paying
it'll-
thousands and thousands of dollars and he can't collect the money from them? He can't put a lien on their property because of it.
So
He's
what-
got a
what-
lien on their property, he just
Why
cannot
is this
foreclose.
relevant to us?
How do you close this one issue?
Well, right now,
Ready to go?
well, no, I think I want to read or have the opportunity to disseminate this to the board members.
And we're gonna address this.
Then you can pass it out, we'll read it,
Okay.
we'll digest it, and we'll analyze it and report back to you. The question
Okay, so
is,
that's an action item.
yeah, it's an action item.
They already decided what they're gonna do, they're gonna vote on what they're gonna do, and it doesn't matter if you.
Are there any other questions that we can satisfy with this? Been an imbalance, question and answer. Moving forward again, we want to get a contract, negotiate that contract in the best interest, and I'm going to be pulling in advice from some of the individuals. Bill, I'd like to count on you to help us go through the document as well. And our board members will also be looking at the contract and picking it apart. So, yes.
I wanted to know, coming in, Geraldine's property looks horrible with that fence down. So I emailed Larry the other day and asked him about fixing it. Did he realize it was down? He said because of the MSA, it was impossible to do any, we could only do very small repairs. Wait a minute! So I said to him, impossible. I said, you practically redid your house.
Yeah.
I said, what do we have? Another Leo Johns as president?
Yeah, no, that's.
And that was it. Now, who does she go to have that fixed? I mean, I could go there with my
Second time
6
she's broken it down.
I sent in a work order.
So what?
Doing it on
So what? So go over and fix it. Be a nice lady about it.
Chester has an input.
Yeah, I sent pictures in a work order to Casey.
Okay.
Or a request that be looked at.
All right. Well, in the 10 years I've been here, that fence has never been down, so I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
It was broken
Anything else?
months before, they had it repaired, and she broke it down again.
Another 7 minutes.
She's a bulldog.
I moved to the.
All right. Second.
I want to talk about the
What? Bulldog.
You have. You've been in it and you just didn't know.
No, that's an input that we're gonna have, we don't have the entire policy. No, it hasn't been disseminated to you folks. All right, so Larry wanted us to vote on his initial payment, and what I told him was that I haven't seen the policy. So I don't know what I'm voting on,
the president
I'm
now.
not gonna ask the rest of the board members to vote on something they haven't seen. So I wanna see that policy first, and then, we'll coordinate a little bit with you on the questions you had on that policy. And then we'll vote on it, during our next session.
Okay, that's an action item.
Yeah.
Luis, we
Put that as an action item.
There's a move on the floor to adjourn, second.
The meeting's adjourned.
All right.
Oh, hey, there's some statement I'd like to
The meeting's
make.
adjourned.
Is Larry Hahn the president or is he
Who
not
is the president?
I'm sorry, say again?
Is Larry Hahn the president or not the president?
Until he puts a letter of resignation in and actually moves the facility,
He's still the president.
still the president.
Well, what if he's,
Well, his unit is being sold.